Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. The steam from the bath swirled around Roger as he sank deeper into the warm, soothing water. His long, slender legs poked out at the end of the tub, toes wiggling in the open air. He closed his eyes, relishing this moment of peace and solitude. It was a rare treat in the cramped house he shared with his 3 roommates after high school. Suddenly, the bathroom door burst open. "Hey, Raj, I need the mirror." Jamie barged in, a whirlwind of energy. Roger yelped and sloshed water over the edge of the tub in his haste to cover himself. "Jesus, Jamie, can't you knock?" He glared at his oblivious roommate. "Sorry, bro, I'm in a rush. Got a hot date tonight." Jamie leaned over the sink, carefully gelling his hair into the perfect coif. Roger sighed and sank back into the rapidly cooling bathwater. So much for a relaxing soak. He watched Jamie primp, an all-too-familiar sight. Privacy was a precious commodity in this house. "Looking good." Jamie finger-gunned his reflection before sauntering out, leaving the door wide open. Muttering under his breath, Roger climbed out of the tub and wrapped a fluffy pink towel around his waist. He padded down the hall to his tiny bedroom, dodging discarded pizza boxes and sports equipment. Joan looked up from her sketchbook as Roger entered. "Uh-oh, I know that face. Jamie walk in on you again?" "Yep." Roger flopped down on his unmade bed with a huff. "I swear it's like living in a frat house sometimes. I just want some peace and quiet to think, you know?" "About what?" Joan set her pencil down, giving Roger her full attention. He shrugged. "Everything. My art, my future, who I am." Roger's gaze drifted to the closet, where a splash of colorful fabric peeked out from behind the door. Joan followed his line of sight and smiled softly. "You know I support you, no matter what. But I get it. It's hard to explore that side of yourself here." Roger nodded, throat tight. Joan was the only one who knew about his love of wearing women's clothing. He didn't dare let his macho roommates find out. "Tell you what," Joan said brightly. "I've been working on something that might help, give you a little more freedom to express yourself." Roger perked up. "Yeah? What is it?" "You'll see. Meet me in the garage tonight after the guys leave for their party. I promise it'll blow your mind." Joan winked. Intrigued, Roger agreed. He trusted Joan completely. They had been inseparable since art class freshman year, bonding over their love of avant-garde fashion and distaste for their hometown's small-mindedness. The hours crawled by as Roger tried to focus on his charcoal still life. His mind kept wandering to Joan's mysterious plan. What could she have in store? Finally, the house emptied for the night. Roger practically ran to the garage, anticipation thrumming in his veins. He found Joan hunched over a workbench scattered with beakers and strange contraptions. "Okay, what's this mad scientist stuff?" Roger joked. Joan spun around, eyes gleaming. In her hand was a glowing vial of purple liquid. "This, my dear, is the key to unlocking your true self." Roger squinted at the potion skeptically. "Is this some trippy new drug? You know I don't mess with that stuff." No, nothing like that." Joan shook her head. "This is, well, I guess you could call it a transformation serum. I've been tinkering with my aunt's old alchemy notes." "Alchemy? Like turn lead into gold hocus pocus?" "I know it sounds crazy." Joan took Roger's hand, earnest. "But I swear it works. This formula will temporarily change your body to female. No more sneaking around in ill-fitting skirts." Roger's heart leapt into his throat. Could it be possible? The idea was so tantalizing, so tempting. To actually feel at home in his own skin for once. "Is it safe?" he whispered. "Perfectly." Joan squeezed his fingers. "I've tested it on myself. You can change back any time with this antidote." She held up a vial of shimmering green elixir. Roger reached for the purple potion with shaking hands. He met Joan's encouraging gaze, drew a deep breath, and downed it in one gulp. Warmth spread through his limbs, gentle at first, then building to an electric tingle. Roger gasped as the garage began to blur and sway around him. He stumbled and Joan caught him, easing him to the floor. "I've got you," she murmured. Don't fight it. Let the magic happen. Roger squeezed his eyes shut as his body shifted and reformed. It didn't hurt exactly, but the sensation of bones and skin rearranging was incredibly bizarre. After a minute that felt like an eternity, the world settled. Roger blinked up at Joan, dizzy and disoriented. Look, Joan held up a small mirror with a proud grin. Roger took it and his breath caught. Staring back at him was a beautiful young woman with long lashes, full lips, and tumbling auburn hair. He ran a hand over the unfamiliar curves of his body in awe. Wow, he breathed. His voice was higher, liltingly feminine. This is unreal. You're gorgeous. Joan helped him to her feet. I'm thinking we call you Regina, Latin for queen. Regina, Roger repeated, savoring the name on his tongue. I love it. Joan stepped closer, taking Regina's hands. You know, this doesn't have to be just about gender expression. We could explore other aspects too. Regina's heart fluttered at Joan's proximity. She was acutely aware of every brush of skin, every shared breath. Had Joan's eyes always been so blue? What do you mean? Regina asked softly, suddenly shy. I mean, I've always been more attracted to women, and now that you are one, maybe we could… Joan trailed off, biting her lip. Oh, the pieces clicked into place. Regina had never considered that Joan might see her that way. But now, in this new body, with a new sense of self, the idea sent a thrill down her spine. Slowly, tentatively, Regina leaned in. Joan met her halfway in a kiss that started sweet. When they finally broke apart, they were both flushed red. Joan grinned, radiant. Welcome to the world, Regina, she said. I can't wait to show you everything it has to offer. Regina twirled in front of the full-length mirror, marveling at the way the floral sundress flared around her knees. Joan had taken her shopping for an entirely new wardrobe, and Regina was in heaven. She had never felt so free, so authentically herself. I'm so jealous of your figure, Joan groaned from where she lounged on the bed. That dress looks amazing on you. Regina flushed with pleasure, still getting used to such open appreciation of her body. Thanks. I feel amazing in it. It had been 2 weeks since Joan's miraculous potion had transformed Roger into Regina. 2 weeks of exploring her new identity, both inside and out. And with each passing day, Regina fell harder for her brilliant, beautiful best friend. Dating Joan was a revelation. As Roger, he had always admired her wit and creativity. But as Regina, she was utterly captivated by Joan's boldness, her tender heart, the way she threw herself into loving Regina with her whole being. They spent long hours tangled together, mapping soft curves and secret spots that made them gasp and sigh. Regina had never known such passion, such toe-curling bliss. Making love as a woman was a whole new world of sensation and emotion. But it wasn't all romance and roses. Being a girl came with its own set of challenges that Regina was wholly unprepared for, like the day they decided to visit the downtown art gallery. Regina agonized for hours over what to wear, wanting to look just right. She finally settled on a chic blouse and skinny jeans, meticulously applying her makeup. Stepping out onto the sunny sidewalk, Regina felt pretty and confident. But that assurance quickly evaporated under the barrage of catcalls and lewd comments from men passing by. Damn, baby, you're a tall drink of water. Let me get a taste. Want to bring that my way? Regina's cheeks burned as she hurried along, trying to ignore the crude remarks. She had never been objectified like this before. As Roger, he was used to blending into the background. Now, Regina felt like a piece of meat on display. Hey, just ignore those pigs, Joan said, taking Regina's hand protectively. They're just insecure jerks trying to feel powerful. Regina nodded, throat tight. She knew Joan was right, but their words still stung. Was this what women dealt with every day? This constant sense of being watched, judged, harassed? It was exhausting and demoralizing. At the gallery, Regina tried to lose herself in the abstract sculptures and vivid paintings. Art had always been her escape, her solace. But even here, she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. A sleek, well-dressed man kept circling her like a shark, pretending to study the same exhibits. Regina's skin prickled each time he drew near. She recognized that look in his eyes. Hunger, entitlement. Abruptly, he blocked her path, flashing a too-white smile. "Excuse me, I just had to say, you are breathtaking. Are you an artist yourself? A model, perhaps?" "No, I'm just looking," Regina said shortly, trying to step around him. But he mirrored her movements, standing far too close for comfort. "Aw, don't be like that. A pretty thing like you. I'm sure you're bursting with hidden talents. Why don't we grab a drink and you can tell me all about them?" His hand reached out, grazing her hip. Regina recoiled as if scalded. "Don't touch me! Leave me alone!" The man's eyes flashed with anger at the rejection. He opened his mouth, no doubt to spit some misogynistic insult. But then Joan was there, interposing herself between them. "She said back off, creep!" Joan's voice was pure ice. "Before I call security and have your ass thrown out." The man sneered, but slunk away. Regina sagged against Joan, shaking with adrenaline and revulsion. "God, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that," Joan said, rubbing soothing circles on Regina's back. "I should have realized he was trouble sooner." "It's not your fault," Regina assured her. Is it always like this? Constantly having to be on guard, fending off gross dudes who think you owe them something just for existing?" "Welcome to womanhood," Joan sighed. "It sucks, but you learn to trust your instincts and shut that crap down fast. And lean on your girls for backup." Regina nodded, immensely grateful to have Joan by her side through all this. She couldn't imagine navigating these treacherous new waters alone. As the weeks passed, Regina gradually learned the unspoken rules and rituals of femininity. How to walk in heels without teetering, which lipstick shades complemented her skin tone, the exact angle to tilt her head for maximum flirtation. But she also learned the quiet strength and resilience of women, how to hold her head high in the face of misogyny, to demand respect in a world determined to deny it. There was a special kind of power in womanhood, Regina discovered. A grace under fire that left her in awe. Of course, there were plenty of physical aspects to being female that took some getting used to as well. The first time Regina got her period, she thought she was dying. She woke in the night to stabbing cramps and blood-soaked sheets, crying out in pain and terror. Joan rushed to her side, gathering her into her arms. "Shh, it's okay, baby. You're okay. This is totally normal." "It hurts," Regina whimpered, curling into a fetal position. "Make it stop, please." "I know, love. Periods are the worst." Joan stroked Regina's hair, infinitely patient. "I'll get you some ibuprofen and a heating pad. And in the morning, we'll go buy supplies. Tampons, pads, all that jazz." Regina groaned at the thought of having to deal with this every month. The cramps, the mess, the foggy malaise that left her drained and irritable. She had taken for granted how much easier things were in a male body. But Joan guided her through it all with gentle humor and hard-won wisdom. They binged trashy reality shows on the couch, Joan feeding Regina bites of chocolate in between massaging her aching abdomen. There was a strange intimacy to it, this initiation into the secret pains and rituals of womanhood. As Regina adjusted to her monthly cycle, other differences became apparent as well. Her skin was softer now, more sensitive. She bruised like a peach and had to invest in a whole array of lotions and oils to keep from chafing. Shaving was a whole ordeal unto itself. The first time Regina dragged a razor up her leg, she sliced herself badly enough to need butterfly bandages. Joan had to coach her through the process, demonstrating the exact angle and pressure to use. "Welcome to the joys of hairless beauty standards," Joan quipped as she dabbed antiseptic on Regina's nicks. "Bleeding for the sake of smooth skin. The things we do for femininity, huh?" Regina quickly learned that beauty was pain in more ways than one. High heels left her feet throbbing and blistered. Waxing made her eyes water and her skin sting for days. And don't even get her started on the torture device known as a bra. "How do you stand it?" Regina complained, adjusting her underwire for the 100th time. It's like wearing a cage around my rib cage. You get used to it, Joan shrugged. And hey, at least we're not wearing corsets like our foremothers. Progress. Still, Regina couldn't help but feel a pang of envy when she watched her guy friends roughhouse and lounge unselfconsciously. They had no idea how good they had it, living free of the 1,000 little discomforts and indignities that came with having a female body. But even with all the challenges, Regina wouldn't have traded her newfound womanhood for anything, because it had brought her closer to Joan than she ever dreamed possible. They were sprawled on a picnic blanket in the park, enjoying a rare, sunny afternoon. Joan was reading poetry aloud as Regina dozed with her head in Joan's lap. Suddenly, a soccer ball thudded down inches from Regina's face. She yelped and sat up just as a little boy came racing over to retrieve it. "Sorry," he called, grabbing the ball. But as he turned to run back to his family, the boy did a double take, his face scrunching in confusion. Are you a boy? You look like a boy in a dress." Regina's stomach dropped. She opened and closed her mouth, frozen in horrified silence. It was her worst fear realized, being seen as an imposter, a man playing dress-up. But Joan leaned forward, eyes snapping with protective fire. "She is not a boy. Her name is Regina, and she's my girlfriend. It's very rude to ask about people's private parts, you know." The kid had the grace to look abashed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. Regina is a pretty name for a pretty girl." With that, he scampered off, the moment already forgotten. But Regina turned to Joan with shining eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, "for defending me, for seeing me as I truly am." "Always," Joan vowed, cupping Regina's face in her hands. "You are a woman in every way that matters. Never let anyone make you doubt that." Regina pulled Joan into a searing kiss, pouring all her love and gratitude into the embrace. She knew there would be many more challenges ahead as she navigated this new identity. Moments of dysphoria and self-doubt, cruelties both casual and cutting. But with Joan by her side, Regina felt ready to face it all. Because being a woman was so much more than the curve of her hips or the timbre of her voice. It was strength and softness, resilience and grace. It was fighting to forge her own path in a world that wanted to dictate her desires. Most of all, being a woman was the joy of loving without limits, of opening her heart fully to the incredible person who saw her, cherished her exactly as she was. Since embracing her identity as a woman, Regina had reveled in the joys and challenges of femininity, the beauty rituals, the monthly cycles, the sisterhood she shared with Joan. But lately, a new insecurity had begun to plague her. As Roger, he had never given much thought to his figure. Men's bodies were judged by different metrics: strength, virility, rugged handsomeness. But women were held to impossible standards of slender perfection, and Regina was starting to feel the pressure. She poked at her tummy, once flat and firm, now softened by the curves of womanhood. Her thighs seemed to rub together more than they used to. Was she imagining it, or had her jawline grown a bit less defined? "Babe, you almost ready?" Joan called from the bedroom. "I don't want to be late for spin class again," Regina startled, quickly throwing on her leggings and sports bra. She and Joan had started going to the gym together, part of Regina's quest to sculpt a body that aligned with her gender identity. But more and more, those workouts felt like a battle against her own unruly flesh. At the fitness center, Regina climbed onto a stationary bike beside Joan, trying to ignore the floor-to-ceiling mirrors that lined the room. She knew it was meant to help with form and motivation, but all she could see were her flaws magnified. As the instructor guided them through the warm-up, Regina snuck glances at the other women in the class. They all looked so effortlessly toned and trim, like living sculptures. Regina felt huge and ungainly in comparison, her muscular frame struggling to adapt to her new softness. Sweat poured down Regina's face as she pedaled furiously, desperate to burn away the extra pounds. Her lungs seared and her thighs trembled with exhaustion, but she pushed herself harder, chasing that elusive ideal of feminine beauty. Beside her, Joan shot Regina a concerned look. She leaned over, pitching her voice low under the thump of the music. "Hey, ease up a bit. You're going to hurt yourself." Regina shook her head stubbornly, gasping for breath. "I'm fine. I can handle it." Joan frowned, but let it drop, focusing on her own workout. Regina gritted her teeth and dug deeper, determined to keep up with the rest of the class. As the cool-down stretched into a final savasana, Regina laid back on her mat, chest heaving. The endorphins coursing through her veins battled against the nagging voice in her head that whispered she would never be good enough. After class, Regina lingered by the lockers, toweling the sweat from her neck. Joan came up beside her, bumping her hip playfully. "You were a beast out there! I could barely keep up! What's gotten into you?" Regina shrugged, avoiding Joan's eyes in the mirror. "Just trying to get fit, that's all." Joan studied Regina for a long moment, her gaze far too perceptive. "This isn't just about fitness, though, is it? You've been pushing yourself really hard lately, skipping meals, obsessing over the scale. I'm worried about you." Regina's throat tightened. Trust Joan to see right through her. She forced a brittle smile. "I'm fine, I promise. It's just, adjusting to this new body is a lot sometimes, you know? I feel like I have to work twice as hard to look half as good as other girls." Joan's face softened with understanding. She took Regina's hands, turning her away from their reflections. "Baby, you are stunning exactly as you are. You don't need to punish yourself to fit some arbitrary standard. There's no one right way to be a woman." Logically, Regina knew Joan was right. But the toxic messages that bombarded her from every angle were hard to tune out. The ads for miracle diets and problem area solutions, the tabloids gleefully circling every celebrity's tiniest imperfection, the social media rabbit hole of unattainable body goals. It felt like everywhere Regina turned, the world was telling her she took up too much space, that her worth hinged on her ability to shrink and contain herself. She desperately wanted to believe Joan's words, but a lifetime of conditioning made it feel impossible. "I hear you," Regina said quietly.
"I do, but it's not that simple. When I look in the mirror, all I see are the ways my body betrays who I know myself to be. If I can't match that inner image of femininity, how can I expect anyone else to see me as a real woman?" Joan's heart ached at the vulnerability and self-loathing in Regina's voice. She knew all too well the crushing pressure to conform to rigid gender norms, but she refused to let her girlfriend succumb to that toxic narrative. "Regina, your body could never betray your womanhood, because your gender lives in your brilliant mind and your tender heart, not the shape of your silhouette." Joan slid her arms around Regina's waist, fitting their bodies together like puzzle pieces. "You are the realest woman I've ever known, so strong and soft, brave and nurturing, complex and complete. Please don't diminish yourself for a world too small to contain your beautiful truth." Regina melted into Joan's embrace, tears pricking her eyes. It was so tempting to believe her, to tune out the critical static and trust in Joan's loving view of her. She knew it would be a daily battle to root out the internalized fat phobia and gender policing. There was no quick fix or magic cure, but with Joan as her ally and advocate, Regina felt a tiny bit stronger, more equipped to face down the demons of dysmorphia and dysphoria. Healing was a non-linear journey, she was learning. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. As if reading her thoughts, Joan pressed a kiss to Regina's temple. "You know I'm in this with you for the long haul, right? No matter what you weigh or what you wear. I love the soul that animates your form, not the superficial trappings." Regina smiled tremulously, tipping her forehead against Joan's. "How did I get so lucky to have you as my partner in all this? I'd be lost without your wisdom and support." "Hey, we're a team," Joan said firmly. "Lifting each other up is what we do. You've been my rock through so many rough patches. Let me return the favor now." Regina nodded, breathing in the mingled scent of their sweat and perfume, Joan's lavender body wash, her own rosewater face mist.
There was something profoundly intimate about it, the casual collision of their rituals, a reminder that femininity came in infinite permutations. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.